Why aren't video games fun anymore? This is a desperate plea people are making across the internet right now. It's on Reddit, it's on Quora. People are demanding to know, why isn't it fun anymore? Now, I can't pretend to have all of the answers, but there are a lot of answers that are given to this question when it is asked on the different forums, and I kind of want to dissect some of those answers and talk about what I believe to be the reason why video games are not fun anymore. Let's start with the number one answer that everyone always gives. If you spend any time on Reddit, if you spend any time on Quora, if you look at any forum and someone asks this question, inevitably someone is going to say, oh, well, you've just outgrown video games. You've gotten older and you just don't appreciate them anymore, or you're too old for video games. And I think this is the absolute worst possible answer to this question, with an asterisk. Personally, I feel that video games are an art form, and we don't apply this "you grew out of it" to any other art form. If you didn't like Breaking Bad, someone's not going to say, oh, well, you just outgrew TV. If you didn't like reading Lord of the Rings, someone's not going to say, oh, well, you outgrew reading. This doesn't get applied to any other aspect of art, whether it be TV, theater, opera, but for some reason, people think video games can just be outgrown. Now, the reason that I said with an asterisk on this one is because I do think it is possible to outgrow certain genres or have certain parts of your life that you have moved past. I think the greatest example of this would be the old school Halos. Halo 2, Halo 3, when people were playing these, say, in college, that was an exciting part of life, and the experience of LAN partying with Halo 2 and Halo 3 while staying up late, the thrill of college, all the friends near you, I don't think you're ever going to recreate that specific experience no matter what game you play. And I think if you try and recreate that experience of like those LAN parties or being in college staying up late playing Halo 2, I don't think you're ever going to recapture that. And that might give one explanation for why games aren't as fun anymore. You're trying to recapture something that just simply can't be recaptured. If that's the case, you certainly could find fun in other video games, and that's usually what I would tell people to do is, well, try something different. Obviously, you're never going to recapture StarCraft LAN parties or Halo LAN parties, but have you tried other games? Have you tried indie games? Have you tried something different? Again, you haven't outgrown video games, but maybe it's time to move on from that genre. In the same way, maybe if you enjoyed watching cartoons as a kid, you haven't outgrown TV, but those specific cartoons were meant for a specific period of your life and you have moved past that. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. The other number one answer that gets put when anyone asks why aren't video games fun anymore, people will just say, well, modern gaming sucks. It's because modern games are bad. It's because AAA games are uncreative. It's because gaming as a whole is terrible, and that's why you're not having as much fun. And I think we can debunk this one. Are there bad modern games? Definitely. I don't want to dispute that. There have been a ton of games that have come out recently that have been terrible, but it's always been that way. Heck, if you watch Angry Video Game Nerd, you can see he's got 15 seasons of bad games on the NES and PlayStation 2 and Nintendo 64, right? So bad games have been a thing forever. And we also can't discount that there have been some great games, great pieces of art, and great pieces of storytelling that have come out in the modern era. We look at things like Skyrim, which is considered to be like the start of the modern era of video games. People have played that for thousands of hours. You have Red Dead Redemption 1, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us, all considered to be masterpieces. I could go on. There's Breath of the Wild that people consider to be one of the greatest games. You have the Elden Ring and all the Souls series. So there are plenty of examples of good modern games, just as there are examples of bad old games. I think you could even make an argument that we've entered a golden age of gaming. If you look at something like Helldivers 2, which is an amazing game despite some of the controversy and drama that's been happening, that game was $40 in today's money. When Final Fantasy III launched on the SNES in the United States, that game was $80, and that was in 1994. That's like $120 in nowadays money. So gaming has decreased in price and increased in quality in many ways. Of course, that's not looking at things like DLC or all the scummy games that are launched on mobile phones that are meant to take your money, but that's a topic for a different time. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't think it's just that modern games aren't as good as retro games, because there are some great retro games and there are some great modern games. So I don't think to just dismiss it as modern gaming sucks is a fair statement, especially when you have indies coming out with great games. Stardew Valley, Dave the Diver, Hollow Knight. There's so many that you could name that are just wonderful indie games that, again, are way cheaper than modern day games and tell great stories and have great gameplay. I don't think it's fair to just dismiss the entire modern genre. So then with that said, that doesn't answer the question. Why isn't modern gaming as fun anymore? Why aren't I having as much fun as I once did when I played video games? So let's jump into some of the answers that I think would answer this question. Now, to note, I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to diagnose you with depression, I'm not going to be able to solve the great psychological mysteries of the world. These are just my opinion on things that I think impact us and why gaming might not be as fun as it once was. Theory number 1. Now, this is something that I personally feel on a deep level, and I hope you can appreciate because I think it is a huge problem in modern day games, and that is the amount of time that it takes to get into the game is just too much. As adults, we have kids, we have families, we have social obligations, we have work, we have commute, we have so many hobbies, interests, and different things that require us to spend our time doing that our time is valuable. So when we have just an hour to play a game, we want to sit down and start having fun. And so many modern games don't allow you to do that. You have to boot up the game. You have to wait for it to download an update for 5, 10, 15 minutes. Then you start the game. Then you have to watch a 10-minute cutscene, then a 5-minute story, then a 10-minute cutscene, then a 30-minute tutorial, then a 10-minute cutscene. And all of a sudden, that hour or two that you had for gaming has been spent watching what's essentially a low-budget movie and not getting to enjoy the game. Red Dead Redemption 2 is guilty of this, and don't get me wrong, I do believe the game is a wonderful game, but I can't tell you how many people I've seen who've said that they haven't been able to play Red Dead Redemption 2 because every time they go to start, they have to go through that darn snow scene that's just so long, so boring that they don't want to go through it again to play through it a second time, or they don't even want to do it the first time because they would rather play a game for the 30 minutes that they have rather than watch the cutscenes of Red Dead Redemption 2. Compare that to something like Doom 1993, which you can jump in and start taking out demons within 30 seconds, or something like Mario Bros. 1 or Mario Bros. 2, where you just pop in the game, new game, and start, and there you are. You're playing, you're having fun, you jump into it immediately. As I mentioned earlier, as we get a little bit older, as we all mature, we value our time differently. And so when we have that different value on time, we can't spend as much time on things that we used to. And that includes long cutscenes or long load-ins or waiting for games to download, when that time could be spent doing other things, other hobbies, or spending time with friends, family, loved ones that we would rather do rather than sit there and sit through a cutscene. Theory number 2 also deals with time, but in a little bit of a different way, and that is many games that are being made now demand so much of your time and ask that you play that game exclusively, or you're going to miss out. I'm going to use modern World of Warcraft as an example of this because it demands so much of your time. Not only do you have to log in and do dailies, not only do you have to log in and do little things every single day to level up your cape or whatever the flavor of the month power up is, but you also have an adventure journal that you have to do every single month or else you miss out on items. You have to do dungeons, you have daily timers for getting gear, you have raid lockouts weekly. It essentially says you have to play this game every single day and every single week if you want to achieve the high level of completing the story and getting everything done. And certainly you can play the game without doing all of that, but it's going to activate what they call the FOMO, the fear of missing out. All of a sudden, you're missing out on trinkets, you're missing out on transmog, you're missing out on mounts, you're missing out on things that other players have, and you have to look at other players who are more powerful than you, who have things you don't have, and that's just not as fun to see everyone else is accomplishing what I can't. And it's not just World of Warcraft. A lot of games, I'll use Fortnite as an example, have the Battle Pass system now, where they say you need to play our game every single day and level up, or else you're going to miss out on skins or exclusives or events or things that you want and everyone else is going to have, and you aren't going to have it if you don't play every single day. And as you probably know, if you're forced to do something, guess what? It's not fun anymore. You're not playing those games to have fun anymore. You're playing them because you want to unlock the things, and all of a sudden it's becoming a chore. I have to log on. I have to do the daily. I have to grind the battle pass to get these things so that I don't miss out. And then you're not playing the game. You're just doing it out of obligation, and that quickly becomes a job. And as everyone knows, no one willingly does a job, right? We do jobs because we need money to pay our bills. Same thing with the games. If we're being forced to play them, they're not going to be fun anymore. And I think one of the most telling symptoms of this is anytime a battle pass comes out for a game, whether it be Fortnite, whether it be Call of Duty, whether it be World of Warcraft, whatever the example may be, the day after the battle pass comes out or whatever it is for that game, people are on the forums asking, what's the most efficient way to do this? How can I do this quickly? How can I get this done with this as fast as possible? You know you have bad game design when people are asking, how can I get the rewards with the least amount of effort? I don't want to do this, but I feel obligated to do it, so tell me how to do it quickly and painlessly so I don't ever have to do it again. That's not great game design. Theory number 3 has to deal with stress. It comes as no secret that the state of the world is lacking, to put it kindly. People talk about the world ending every single day. We've got world records of depression, of stress, of issues. It doesn't matter if you're a kid or an adult. You have more problems now than I think a lot of people have had in the last 10, 20, 30 plus years. Combine that with social media and ironically YouTube and other places where you're constantly being barraged with bad news that the world is ending, global warming is going to get us, nuclear war, everything is coming to an end. And all of a sudden, you've got a lot of issues that you're dealing with and a lot of stress that you're dealing with. And that's going to impact you no matter what. It doesn't matter whether your hobby is painting or gaming or photography, watching TV, reading books. If you're stressed out, if your entire life is just constant doom and gloom, that is going to impact any hobby. But for gaming specifically, there's another layer to it. And that is a lot of modern games ask you to go out and compete. You're already stressed out. You're already miserable. And then you jump into Call of Duty, which has the sweatiest lobbies known to man, or Fortnite, which is just as sweaty, or even World of Warcraft with like competitive rating, competitive PvP. You can't escape it. Almost every game in some way asks us to compete against other people. And at the end of the day, when you're already stressed out, when you're already depressed, when you're already done dealing with people, being asked to perform at your absolute best means you have to continue to stress, continue to sweat. You don't get a chance to just sit back and enjoy it. Now, in all fairness, I did say that not all modern games are bad. We do have games that don't have this. Some examples, Dave the Diver, Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, all very chill games that you can play at your own pace. But for a lot of people, they want to play games with other people. They want to feel like they're accomplishing something. They want to compete in these environments with other people, and it's just adding to stress. Playing Animal Crossing is a way different experience than playing competitive Call of Duty. The next theory delves into a realm that I don't have a whole lot of experience with. Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, so I want to be careful in how I'm presenting this. But we do know that video game addiction is a thing. And I know that some people are going to laugh at that, and I know that some people still don't believe that it is a thing, but I truly believe that video game addiction is a problem, and it is something that is impacting some people. And in the same way, when people are addicted to nicotine or alcohol or gambling, you look at them and see how miserable they are, but they can't see how miserable they are because the addiction is running so rampant. I think people who are playing 10, 12, 16 hours of video games a day every single day and doing nothing else, who are burnt out on those video games, who are upset at those video games, who aren't having fun but can't get away from the addiction, they can't see the forest for the trees. On the outside, people looking in can say, well, of course you're not having fun. You've been playing that same game for 16 hours a day, every day for 7 months straight. Go do something else. But when you're in the throes of addiction, it's not that easy. And even if you're not addicted, burnout is a real thing. Sometimes all it takes is getting away, trying a new hobby, or investing in a hobby that's adjacent to gaming. I know many people who love Warhammer games, and they got into actual Warhammer tabletop and reading the lore and reading the books and investing in the community and being a part of the community, and that really helped them to enjoy the Warhammer games even more and appreciate the time that they spent gaming, because their time was then spent on other hobbies that they were enjoying just as much. Sometimes it does help to go step away from it and try something different. Now, I know a lot of people will say, oh, I'm just telling you to go outside and touch some grass, and I hate that phrase personally, but there is some truth to it. Sometimes it is good to just step away from your hobby and try something different for a little bit. Next theory, decision paralysis or choice paralysis. With the advent of Steam and Steam Summer Sale and all the humble bundles and all the ways to get different video games, most of us have a library of 1,000 games, 2,000 games, 5,000 games. There's a lot of game choices out there, and a lot of people find themselves saying, well, I've got all these games I haven't played. I'm just going to go back and play Age of Empires 2 again, or I'm going to go play Mass Effect 1 again. Why does that happen? Well, there's a lot of psychology behind it, and again, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to go deep into it, but essentially it boils down to we have so many choices and we're afraid of making the wrong choice because, again, we've only got 1 or 2 hours to play a game and we want to play the right game and have the most fun possible. So rather than trying something new that could be bad or have a bad experience with it or go through like the frustrations, like I said, of having to download things and watch a cutscene, we just go back to what we already know. And that might be some of the old games that we've played a million times, some of the retro games, because it's that familiar, it's that nostalgia, and we know that it's good. It's kind of like when you go to your favorite restaurant and you order the same meal every single time because you know that meal is good. You know that you're going to enjoy it. You could order something else, but there's always that risk of, but what if it's not as good? And if it's not as good, I could have had my favorite meal. So why would I bother to try anything else when I already know that I'm going to get what I love if I order the same thing that I've ordered every single time? If you've made it this far, we've been talking for about 16 minutes, and I hope in that time I've established a little bit of credibility and a little bit of trust in what I'm saying. I'm trying to be unbiased, and I'm trying to really examine the problem and find solutions to it. I have one more theory to present, but I wanted to build that trust and credibility first so that you don't just leave on me. I want you to hear me out all the way on this and give me a fair shake since you've given me this much of your time. And I'm going to start this segment with some advice that my father gave me that changed my life. My father told me in order for a man to be happy, you have to work out your body, you have to work out your brain, and you have to work out your spirituality. And I think a lot of people are missing out on that spirituality. You see, there's more to this life than just video games, more than just friends, more than just family. And while video games, again, are good, as you can tell from a gaming channel, I enjoy video games. I like playing video games. I like talking about video games. In the end, they're not the most important thing in the world. There are things that are far, far more important. And by having those other things in my life that are important, it helps me to appreciate video games when I can play them and appreciate them for what they are. And I know it sounds a little crazy, and I know you probably have already left at this point, but if you've stayed, I appreciate that. And I want you to try something. It's very simple. If you're not already, work out a little bit. Go for a walk. Go to a gym. It doesn't have to be an intensive, bulking up bodybuilder sort of workout, but work out your body. Work out your mind. Read a book or do a mystery, do brain teasers. And then try something like going to church, learning about Jesus, reading the Bible, and then play some video games. And I think you'll see, even if you weren't enjoying video games before, or even if you were struggling a little bit with just burnout, having those 3 things in your life, working out the mind, working out the body, working out the spirit, I think you'll have a new appreciation for the video games. There's no doubt in my mind that video games are art and that video games are important and that we should play and enjoy them. But one of the most important things about being an adult is finding a balance in your life, balancing obligations, balancing playtime, balancing work, balancing all these different things, and that is difficult. It will be the most difficult thing you do. It is something you'll probably spend your entire life doing. But consider if video games aren't fun anymore, maybe it's not the video game's fault, but perhaps something's out of balance, and if you try to rebalance that, maybe you'll find those joys and those passions you had previously. If you made it all the way through that, I appreciate you hearing me out. As always, I do have to ask, like, and subscribe, all that. It helps me greatly, and I hope that you have a blessed day and that this helped you in some way or some form.